Let's get a good word cloud to welcome everybody who shows up right at 11 o'clock, and then they can add to it. Ooh, difficult. Good monitor. Difficult. Okay, this is a good thing. I'm glad that's the first thing that came up, and we are going to try to make M&V less difficult for you. But thank you. Keep them coming. Validation. You know what? I think there's a strong element of M&V validation where it's like you can validate your work as an energy manager by proving your savings. It's not just about validation of numbers, but of the whole business case of being an energy manager. M&V is necessary. I agree with that. It is a necessary part of being an energy manager and doing energy management. Sometimes fun. Put sometimes. That in. Get that on screen, Todd. We got it.
That kind of depends on the results, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
When your project hits target, that's super fun.
That's great. Hey, difficult but fun. I mean, hey, that means it's worthwhile. So this is good. A lot of interesting description about what people think about with M&V, and a confirmation, a final word added there. Wonderful. This workshop is about proving energy savings, the value of M&V. A lot of the words that we just saw speak to the value of M&V, but we're going to make sure that we not only fully understand that value in this workshop, but also actually work on M&V problems that you are facing. Today, as coaches, we have Jay Mullen, we've got myself, Andrew Knox, Augie Fincy, Nick DL. We are going to have 4 breakout rooms in this workshop, and so every one of you is going to be in a breakout room with at least, well, with one of these coaches, because there are 4 coaches, 4 rooms. And supporting us today, we've got Helen Marsh and Jacksana Kananison. Feel free to talk to us as we go through, although a lot of the questions that you've got, we put in the chat or that come up as we go through this, we're going to maybe wait till the end. We're going to have a large window of discussion at the end because there's a lot of content to get through here. Before we get into our topic of the day, though, I want to make sure that everyone understands that the submission window for Energy Manager Awards has been extended to June 13th. So it was going to be Monday, but now you have a few more weeks. And this award is open to both funded and non-funded energy managers. So if you think you're doing a good job as an energy manager, feel free to make an application here. The QR code that you see on the screen will take you directly to where you can apply. And the application form is new, improved, and easier than it previously was. If in this workshop you really get bitten by the M&V bug and you decide you got to do more to get qualified as an M&V professional, you can get your CMVP designation next month. Starting June 15th, there is a 3-day training. The ISO has incentives for up to 50% of the cost of the training that you can apply for. There are also other training courses that you can do to improve your energy management skills, and for a select few of them, you can get up to 75% funding covered by Save on Energy. Now, coming to the topic of the day, first we're going to do an M&V refresher. So you will have been sent links to videos, and you will have heard Jay's voice on those videos telling you what 2 of the basics of M&V. One is a 2.5-minute video, one's 3.5. I would strongly suggest you watch those videos after the webinar if you haven't, but if you have, then the refresher we want to do, which is in the form of a quiz, is going to be really easy for you. But if you didn't, don't worry, because the quiz is anonymous and no one is going to know if you got the answers right or not. And actually, a quiz is a great way to learn something if you just take a stab when you don't know, and then you eventually learn the right answer. And for many of the questions, there is no right answer. There's a lot of kind of it depends in there. So we're going to do that and have some fun with it. Then we're going to cover common M&V mistakes and challenges. And then we're going to take the bulk of the time to get into our breakout rooms, where we are going to show this worksheet, which you've also had the opportunity to download in advance. And Helen is going to put in the chat so you can download it now, we're going to step through this worksheet for energy managers who volunteer to talk about projects where they've got M&V challenges and they want help, not just from coaches today, but from the entire population of their breakout room. So we want to see a lot of energy managers helping each other at that point to crack our, like somebody put, M&V is difficult in the original question there on Menti. We're going to try to crack through some of that difficulty by working on it together. So the quiz that I mentioned is going to refresh you on some M&V basics. To get to that quiz, you can go to menti.com and enter this 8-digit code, as you would have if you answered the opening question. You can also scan that QR code and it will take you directly to the quiz. I'm going to get the first question on the screen soon, but I'll just give you maybe 10 seconds to do that QR scan if you want to, or put in the code if you haven't already. And here we go back to Menti. This was our word cloud for people who were joining us originally. We're going to go to the first quiz type question, which actually, this is one of the ones where there's no wrong answer. Multiple choice, you can enter multiple answers. Choose out of the options available. Why is M&V important to you? The first answer says it ensures projects are delivering savings. Oh, nice. We're getting a lot of, well, a little bit of an even spread, although people really love that M&V ensures that projects are delivering the expected savings. Good. Piling up, 21 answers, 23. I'm so happy with how many people are participating in this. Thank you so much. Keep the answers coming in. For me, I love the first one. You don't feel like a true energy manager without it. It is an essential part of energy management. And if you don't know much about M&V, you're still a real energy manager. Don't worry about that. But we will boost your energy or your M&V skills, and you'll get that skill unlocked. All right, I'm going to move on from here. Thank you very much for all the input. Keep answering it if you're able. But I want to make sure we get through this quiz, and we're going to get into the more skill testing questions. So verifying savings requires adjusting for operational parameters. So an M&V plan should include which of these, well, which answer is the right answer here? There's only one right answer to this question, okay? Adjusting for parameters is sort of like, well, imagine, year on year, your factory cuts its energy bill in half, but cuts production by 3/4. That means that you have gotten less efficient, even though you're using less energy. So you have to adjust for that parameter of production. And look at this. Almost everybody's getting the right answer here. It's all of the above. The other answers are not really wrong because they should be in an M&V plan. But the all of the above is correct. Every one of these should be in an M&V plan. We're going to talk about parameters a lot today, and measurement period and frequency today. We won't maybe get into a lot of deep equations, but an M&V plan should have equations, and we can work on those as coaches after this workshop if you're having trouble with that. Okay, so we just talked about adjusting for parameters. Who can name some common parameters that you make adjustments for when you're doing M&V? Weather, temperature, yes, those are big ones. Occupancy, flow, yes, flow, pressure, schedule, production. I love that that's in there. Okay, I love that we're getting so many of these too. Weather and occupancy are the biggest ones still, and temperature, yeah, because those are often the most important parameters, especially if you're doing anything with HVAC, anything that depends on outdoor temperature. Look at this word cloud grow. Process changes, yeah. If you add a process line, take a process out, change the way a process works, you got to adjust for these things. All right, let's move on. I'm glad we're very literate in this here. Clearly, most of you watched the videos, or you've just been energy managers for a while. So, okay, When should you start planning for an M&V project? Another one that only has one right answer. When do you need to start planning? And everybody's getting it. Great. Yeah, I think it's clear. You need to plan for M&V as soon as possible. If you started installing your project and you haven't done that planning, you've got to scramble to do it, but it's possibly too late. You may have missed your pre-project window. Okay, in this question, we're going to get you to rate 3 different project types or situations in terms of whether they need low, medium, or high M&V rigor, which is exactly one of the things that you do in the worksheet that we'll be working with today. So these are not formal terms, low, medium, high, but if you were doing recommissioning of a HVAC rooftop unit, would you need low, medium, or high rigor? If you're doing a small lighting project, low, medium, or high, and if you have an energy performance contract, you need low, medium, or high. It looks like things are floating to the right areas here. Maybe a little debate over the HVAC one, but most people are saying small lighting project, low rigor makes sense. It's in the word. It's in the title of the situation. It's small. But an energy performance contract, if you don't get it right, you might be overpaying your service provider for savings that aren't happening. So you need high rigor there. Great. All right. Next question. Which of these project types is likely to require the longest measurement period? Measurement period is how long you're measuring for before and after the project. It can be a day, an hour, weeks, months, sometimes 12 months. Okay, a lot of people are going with the rooftop unit. Throw in the chat why you think rooftop unit is the right answer here. And I'll also just tell you. So most people are picking the rooftop unit here. I don't think any of these answers are wrong, because there's always a kind of a it depends factor, but because rooftop units are so weather dependent, you typically will need a lot of data to capture all the operating modes and to show that you're really making savings. Okay, this is pretty specific, so listen to the question, okay? So for a mid-sized project with 4 distinct and consistent operating modes, which measurement frequency would you choose? Measurement frequency can be spot measurement, sample-based measurement, or continuous. Or actually, there are other types of measurement frequency as well, but you can only choose from these 3. Answers are not coming in as quickly on this one. Oh, but now they're picking up. I think this is one that had a few people thinking about it for a while, which is good. But the majority is going with continuous measurement, and that's good. I would say a key part of this question is the word consistent. And so you could do spot or sample measurement when you know you're in those 4 different modes. As long as you take 4 different measurements in spot measurement, for example, in the 4 different modes, and you know you've captured all the modes, that could work. I would feel safer with sample-based measurement, and I think that's probably would be fine. But no technical reviewer is going to be upset with you if you have too much data. So continuous measurement can also work. And our final question in this quiz, for a pump recommissioning, what would a reasonable measurement boundary be? Measurement boundary is a core concept in M&V. It's saying, if you're drawing a line around your system, how big does that boundary end up being? It can be the whole facility. It can be just the pump. It can be the circuit that pump is drawing from, which may have other equipment on it. It could be multiple, if you're concerned about the equipment upstream and downstream that affect the load of the pump. Or it can be whole facility. Okay, a lot of people are going for equipment isolation. I think that makes a lot of sense. But again, this is one of those ones where none of these are wrong. You could do it all of these ways. Each element has its sort of strengths and weaknesses. Thanks very much. So I hope that refreshed you on everything that you learned from the videos. And again, if you didn't watch them, then the videos will be a great refresher of what you just learned in the quiz. So I'd strongly encourage you to check that out after. So Now we know a lot about M&V theory, and a theory can be really powerful, but the first time you apply something, you're apt to hit one of the pitfalls or make mistakes. So I want to also equip you with just a few mistakes that we see that are kind of common. One, we addressed in the quiz, not planning M&V before you install your equipment is a bad problem to have. And also, having an M&V plan before you do your project has the wonderful benefit of allowing you to show it to another human. A wise man, John Feldman, once told me it's very difficult to edit your own work. And sometimes, and I'm extrapolating from John's comment here, but sometimes you make obvious mistakes that, are not obvious to you, but the first other qualified person that sees it might be like, oh, wait, you missed this big problem here. So make sure you get other people. And it could be your energy manager support services coach that gives that second opinion, but make sure you show your M&V plan to other people, at least for like a first glance. Another problem can have to do with, hooking up a meter and it turns out it's just logging zeros, or it could be that it's not calibrated. You don't have, or just forgetting to hook up one of the meters for one of the parameters that you were going to measure. So not measuring or not verifying data quality in your measurement period is a big problem. So don't set it and forget it. Check on how your data is coming along throughout your pre and post project measurement period. We also talked a little bit about not capturing enough modes of operation. And to proof yourself against that, you may always want to build in a kind of a fallback additional period, like add a week to your measurement period if you've been measuring for 2 weeks and just haven't seen all the action that you want to see. And then too large a measurement boundary sometimes can mean that the signal of your savings will get lost in the noise or the uncertainty of your M&V. And similarly, not using consistent data, like measuring true power in a pre-project and then current in post-project, introduces uncertainty. And there are other ways that inconsistent data as well can help or hurt your M&V efforts. There are specific challenges that come with trying to do M&V for peak demand savings. And it really, a lot of it has to do with this window where peak demand savings happen between 1 and 7 p.m. Notice between 1 and 7 p.m. in this graphic, it's not a straight line of consumption. It varies quite a bit. So calculating the average correctly over that period is an M&V challenge. Any load shifting that you're going to do, you have to not just show the effect of that load shifting, but also measure the data outside the peak demand window so that you can demonstrate you're not increasing your total energy consumption. Now that's a tip for the funded energy managers, because increasing total energy consumption makes your measure ineligible under the program. But it's also useful to make sure you're not increasing total energy, even if you're not within the rules of the energy manager program. You also have to make sure your data is hourly, because daily data won't cut it when you're trying to prove that you've made savings in a certain portion of the day. And because you're in that confined portion of the day, it sometimes can be hard to make sure you capture all the modes of operation. Now, I only want to briefly touch on M&V options. We're going a little informal today with our worksheet on M&V, but if you look at IPMVP or the Energy Manager Program Guidance, you'll see these options for M&V. Quick point, the difference between option A and B is not about measurement duration or period, but it is about what things you're measuring. So the difference is key parameters versus all parameters. Option C is also one that I want to talk about because it's the whole facility model option. It is the basis of the Energy Performance Program, commonly called EPP. That's an incentive program that pays you 4 cents per kilowatt hour per year on savings that you make based on a model that you can use your utility meter to inform for an entire building. If you are going to do that, I would suggest RedScreen Expert as an excellent tool. If you haven't already gotten it, you can, as funded energy managers, get a free RedScreen Expert license. It's not just a great tool for this kind of modeling, but it also really lets you tell a story by putting a flag in your timeline and saying, after this, our energy consumption went down. So we did a project and we know that it made savings. We've also seen people using this kind of modeling with RedScreen on not just a facility, but on specific systems. So some facilities will have every production line modeled in RedScreen, and that kind of detail lets you tell some really rich stories, not just for yourself, but to communicate the effects of your energy management efforts. This really is just for your reference. Don't worry about memorizing these statistics. We can get them to you later if you need to look back on them, but it just kind of gives you a guide on what works for option C, what ranges you need to be in for a valid model. And we also want to emphasize that you'll often see people saying you need to make a savings that's greater than 10% of the building's consumption. That is a guideline and not a hard rule. And really, you just need your savings to be greater than the error in your model. We can get into more detail on that in coaching if you'd like. I also want to make sure before we go to our breakout rooms that all funded energy managers are aware of this guideline. It is a guide not just for how to do M&V, but do it and document it in the way that the program likes to see it. So if you're not aware of that, make sure your coach tells you about it and gets you a copy of it. You can also download it from the Save on Energy site. Now we're going to get to the kind of meat of what we want to do today, which is work with you on your M&V problems. We are doing that with this worksheet, which again, you'll have seen before if you downloaded it when we had our invitation reminders go out or our registration confirmations go out. So this worksheet lets you just think through the key elements of M&V. I want to be very clear that this is not an M&V plan, but you can get examples of M&V plans. In fact, we've linked to some of them from our worksheet here to do a full M&V plan. And the examples on the Save on Energy site are PDFs, but we can get you editable examples if you're interested in that. That's for a full M&V plan, but we're going to just, again, look at the basics today for your M&V. Hello, everybody. I hope you all had a lot of fun in your breakout rooms there. And I hope you learned a lot about M&V. Do any of the other coaches want to start us off in this recap? What we're going to do now is share back what we learned with the larger group. Any coaches have some real points of interest that they want to bring up that came up in their discussions of M&V in their breakout rooms?
I think we had a couple of examples that raised some interesting points. We had one with a seemingly simple lighting retrofit, but just because of where the lights went in and accessibility of getting those fixtures was really challenging. And we talked about, and it's, some replacements over various circuits and not over a large building. So we talked about the potential of being flexible in terms of that measuring approach and using, potentially a sampling approach on key parameters. So in this one, lighting wattage and doing a sort of a sampling approach, not necessarily needing to capture everything, but enough to get confidence in it. A couple of the other interesting points that came up was, we had one that we just started talking about at the end, but the idea of a hypothetical baseline. So you're installing new equipment that wasn't there before, or it was end of life, and comparing, the efficient system not to what was there before, but to, a hypothetical baseline of what you would have put in if you hadn't been really focused on putting in the most efficient system that you can. That was a really interesting point. And then I think the other one, we had three very different examples. I just wanted to cover all of them. Was one about working from home. And, a lot of people are starting to work from home, or maybe that is a new policy. And a really interesting issue around measurement boundary and who cares about it. Is the boundary just, that office space that's not using as much energy because people aren't there, or is it, the broader, including energy people are using at home, because it is kind of displacing, and how is that necessarily a conservation measure? Because there's, that impact, but then it's also, well, the conservation measure may be, our systems were running full out regardless of how many people were there, and now we're switching to a demand-based system to take advantage of those opportunities for efficiency as well. So some really interesting points that came up, which I think really spoke to, the need for flexibility, and M&V isn't a one-size-fits-all, but using those sort of principles to, and some of the stuff that was on the worksheet that you shared, Andrew, to kind of guide the thought around that.
Cool. I actually had a couple points of interest in my room, breakout room, and for me, the really interesting ones are around measurement period. Jeff, can you unmute again and let everyone know what we talked about is in terms of HVAC projects and measuring for 1 week or 2 weeks or more?
Yeah, originally I was thinking that 1 week would be sufficient to capture kind of the power used over the week and scheduling and just to verify that. But as Andrew advised, it might be good to do like 2 weeks so we don't get, you might get an odd week, maybe you catch an odd week that you've got occupancy changes for some reason, whether it's a holiday or just
weird weather, right?
Yeah, weird weather. Yeah.
An event that only happened that week, but and yeah, like that, that's what I would advise, especially for HVAC projects. If I were reviewing the project and I could see, okay, here's a week's worth of data and there's clearly like a weekday weekend pattern. Well, my next question would be, is that the same? Is that every week like that? Or is this a weird week? And if I have 2 weeks and they're similar, I can say, right, this is the typical weekly pattern. And we could possibly believe that extrapolating that to a full year would make sense. But if it's just 1 week, and let's say that week has some huge spike in it because of something weird that happened, then I'd think, well, I don't know if this is actually enough data for me to believe what the results are telling me. The other interesting measurement period question was for a behavioral measure from Olga, where she's got a lot of different facilities and she's trying to change people's behavior. And so the general top line advice there is, with behavioral change, you can maybe do spot measurement. And so your measurement frequency can be low, but your measurement period needs to be very long because you got to prove that people are still doing the behavioral change over a long time. Augie, Nick, anything else you want to raise or have your energy managers bring up from your rooms?
Yeah, I'll jump in. We had an interesting discussion about a large compressed air project that tackled both supply and demand side. And what this isn't, I guess, specifically MMV related, but it is indirectly. What was kind of double and triple stamped in the room is the importance of making sure that the supply side of the system is optimized and running well before you tackle demand side measures. And this is to ensure that those savings that perhaps vendors of small pieces of equipment on the supply side are actually delivering the savings because your system is optimized in a way to be able to actually reduce energy consumption as a result of those measures. So that was cool.
So this webinar officially ends at noon, but the coaches are going to stay on longer. And I think that is a really rich area of discussion that we could, if you don't have to leave and you want to stay for the discussion, supply side versus demand side is a really interesting topic on M&B. Nick, anything you want to raise from your group?
Yeah, sure. We got into a good amount of detail on one really interesting project involving a absorption heat pump at a multi-unit residential building, and the expected savings to come from that and the approach. Couple interesting things being there that there's just one, gas meter. So despite having two energy uses in terms of the heating in the heating season and then the domestic hot water throughout the year. So this measure would affect the domestic hot water. So at the scale, it looks like it's, a good candidate for, option C, M, and V, because you can split out that period and the savings magnitude might be of a level that you can account for that. And so variables that would affect that model include the outdoor air temperature, occupancy. These would be things to look at if, in developing an M&V plan and developing a model. But, going back to best practices in the workshop from today and looking at where the project's at, this was Felix who was sharing that they've got a meeting later today. They've got the feasibility study. They're kind of making the decision on whether to move ahead. So it seems like now would be the time to also look at developing that M&V plan and maybe build in a budget to put in additional metering, whether that's gas meter or other instrumentation that might be pertinent to the project results. So I think it was a very timely discussion. I think Felix just got this meeting invite this morning and was kind enough to volunteer it up for discussion. So yeah, a couple of good takeaways from that.
Great. And I want to emphasize as well, remember our worksheet is to help you think through things. If you need a full M&V plan, we've got editable examples that we can share. So if you need to bring a full official M&V plan, Felix, let us know. We can send you that editable example. And for anybody, we can continue to provide coaching and working with you on M&V. For the energy managers not in the Energy Manager program, you just need to use the form that I have just put a link to in the chat to get signed up. Some of you I know are already signed up, but as long as you're registered, we can provide coaching services that can help you through the kinds of meetings that Felix has got to go to. Today? Is it today? His meeting is today? And
a few hours.
Good luck. If we can squeeze in some coaching, maybe we will. Hopefully other people maybe have a little more runway and we can do some M&V planning together. I'm just going to make sure we end on time. So I'll go through the last couple of slides here. Again, I want to, before we go, let you know that if you want to get your CMVP designation, which is a good designation to have, a lot of your coaches have it. I think we all have it. You can do that training next month, and you can get Save on Energy to help you cover the cost of that training, as well as other trainings that will build your energy manager skills. Also, remember, you can apply for an Energy Manager Award, whether you're in the Energy Manager program or not. So this is open to people receiving funding from Save on Energy and those not receiving that funding. You have until the 13th to make that application. The QR code here will take you to the application. The pictures that you see are of past winners, and these are pictures that would have either come from or been taken during the shooting of their video, where they walk in slow motion to cool music and they've won an award and they're looking in. I also would just request that you answer one more Menti question for me. So get back to that device, whatever you were using for Menti. If you can, before we close, please let me know what is one M&V activity that you can commit to completing this week. Now, this is Thursday, so you got till the end of the day plus Friday. Okay, someone's committing to finishing this webinar. Whoever said that, you have to stay until noon. Anybody else? What are some other M&V actions that you're going to do? Not feasible. You think it's not feasible to take a single M&V action? Yeah, do M&V. You're doing M&V every day. That's right. That's what energy managers do. M&V every day. I want to address the idea of M&V action not being feasible. If you just download the worksheet that we used today, that counts as an M&V action. I know you can do that this week, and then keep it so you can use it later. Yeah, M&V is already part of the day today. Yeah, is that Felix that said that? He's got that meeting later today, but I wouldn't be surprised if anybody said that, because again, it's an everyday thing. Plan for programs, read the M&V worksheet. Someone's not just going to download it, they're going to download it and read it. That's great. Filling out the worksheet, and they've already done it. Fantastic. Good. I'm glad to see all these M&V actions. Pulling a weekly BAS log. I bet Jeff is jealous because he was saying his BAS does not log data. That's good though. That's it. The BAS is a wonderful M&V tool. Okay. Any more responses coming in that I haven't seen yet? Oh yeah. Good. Okay. You can keep these coming. I'll leave this question open and we'll just keep going. We are at the official end of our 1-hour workshop. So thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate it. Again, don't forget to register for services if you haven't, and don't forget about this Energy Manager Awards, CMVP training.